Action 2 News at 6. The last man still behind bars in one of our area's most notorious murder cases could be released from prison as early as today. We first told you about 72-year-old Keith Kutska's parole approval last month.
He'll be the last of the so-called Monfils 6 to be released from prison. A jury convicted Kutska and his co-workers of killing Tom Monfils at a paper mill back in 1992. Now, as Brittany Schmidt reports, the Wisconsin Department of Corrections has 30 days to release him starting today.
3 years after Tom Monfils' body was found at the bottom of a pulp vat at the James River paper mill in 1992, 6 men went on trial for conspiring to kill him.
State of Wisconsin versus Keith Kutska. We, the jury, find the defendant, Keith M. Kutska, guilty of the offense of first-degree intentional homicide, party to the crime, on or about November 21, 1992.
Keith Kutska, along with his co-defendants, maintained their innocence throughout the trial. All were sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. 5 years post-conviction, Kutska talked to Action 2 News. Once again, he maintained his innocence.
I had absolutely nothing to do with the murder of Tom Monfils, nor did I know that anybody was going to harm Tom Monfils.
He is currently at Prairie du Chien Correctional Institution, a minimum security prison. The Wisconsin Parole Commission denied Kutska's parole request several times. Earlier this month, the commission granted it after 27 years behind bars. A letter from the Wisconsin Parole Commission to Action 2 News said Kutska showed he was successfully rehabilitated and, quote, has earned release, end quote. The commission believes the time served is, quote, sufficient as to not depreciate the severity of his offense, end quote. In the letter, the commission says it made every effort to contact victims in this case to include in the parole process, but they weren't able to find any registered victims. The state recently assigned Kutska a probation and parole agent. The prison has up to 30 days to release Kutska from custody. The other 5 men convicted of murder alongside Kutska have been released from prison. Michael Piaskowski was the first to be released after his conviction was overturned in 2001. Dale Baston received parole in 2017 and died 9 months later. Michael Hearn received parole in 2018 after 23 years behind bars. And in 2019, Michael Johnson and Ray Moore were released from prison about 24 hours apart. In Brown County, Brittany Schmidt, Action 2 News.